All right, so we're diving deep into Iran today. You've given me like a really crazy amount of info. Hopefully we can break it down for everyone listening and kind of give a sense of what's really going on over there.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? You've got these internal changes happening
Hmm.
at the same time as all this pressure from outside. It all kind of feeds into where Iran's headed next.
Exactly. So we
Yeah.
got a new president, right? Masoud Pezeshkian. Some are calling him a moderate, maybe more open to social reforms, engaging with the West a bit more.
Yeah, but we can't forget about the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. He has the final say, and he's been pretty conservative for, well, a long time, so I'm not sure how much will actually change, even if the new president wants to push things.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then there's the fact that the supreme leader is 85. So that whole question of who comes next is just hanging over everything.
Absolutely. That's huge.
Yeah.
And just to throw another wrench in there, the new president has publicly disagreed with the hijab law.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So clearly, some disagreements within the government. The hardliners still have a lot of influence.
Okay, so definitely a lot going on internally. What about Iran's stance towards the U.S.? Any changes there?
Not really. If anything, maybe even more defiant.
Yeah, I was seeing that in the reports.
Ayatollah Khamenei, he basically laughed off the U.S. threats, called negotiations not intelligent, not wise, not honorable.
Wow, okay. Strong words.
Yeah, and he still totally supports the Houthis in Yemen. Then you've got the foreign minister. He said they got a letter from President Trump, called it a threat. But he also hinted that maybe there are opportunities. I don't know.
Interesting.
But he made it clear Iran's in no rush to respond. Like, we'll do things on our own time.
So playing it cool.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, they're showing off these underground missile bases.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about that. Like a warning shot.
Totally. And we can't forget that cleric urging everyone to keep chanting death to America. So mixed signals for sure.
Totally. What about on the home front? Any news there?
Well, Pezeshkian, the president, is trying to deal with their energy problems. He's making all government buildings install solar panels.
Makes sense. But have they released any budget details for this?
Not that I saw. So yeah, transparency is still an issue.
Right. And what about the protests? Those have been going on for a while.
Yeah, over 200 just last month. It's a lot of economic frustration, low wages, people not getting paid. But it also goes deeper. People are fed up with all the social restrictions, censorship, especially when it comes to women's rights.
It's not just random people either. You've got university students out there protesting, younger people using like cultural events, even bonfire festivals to make their voices heard. It definitely feels like a whole generation is unhappy.
Yeah, I mean, the human rights situation is really bad. They're cracking down harder and harder on women's rights or activists, journalists, anyone who doesn't follow the dress code. We're talking arbitrary arrests, unfair trials, floggings, and the number of executions is just...
Over 900 already this year, right?
Yeah, including women activists. They're being charged with these vague national security offenses. And then there's the whole thing with over 100 protesters being blinded by security forces. It's awful.
Ugh, that's just horrific. And it's not even just the official forces. It's like the government is encouraging everyday people to snitch on each other.
Right. State-sponsored vigilantism, they called it. People are using apps and facial recognition to report women for not dressing properly.
Even in their own cars.
It's insane. No wonder Iran's ranked so low on that liberal democracy index.
Yeah. Freedom is definitely under threat over there.
Okay, so let's talk economics. Things are not good. Their currency, the real life, it's basically in free fall. 1 million rial for $1 US.
Oof.
Yeah. And inflation is officially at 40%. Probably even higher in reality. Prices for basic stuff are skyrocketing. Some things have doubled in price in just a year.
It's a recipe for disaster. Almost half the population is living in poverty. And I'm seeing reports of industries shutting down, people pulling their money out of the stock market.
Doesn't sound sustainable.
Not at all. They're trying to bring in foreign investment, boost exports, things like that. But it's just not enough to counter all the negative trends.
Yeah, and then you have the sanctions, which are obviously hitting them hard.
Definitely. Especially the U.S. maximum pressure campaign. It's really choking off their oil exports and access to international finance.
Makes you wonder how much longer they can hold out.
Russia and China have been pushing for the sanctions to be lifted, but the U.S. is standing firm. They even ended that waiver that let Iraq buy electricity from Iran.
It's a standoff for sure. All right, let's wrap up with the international situation. Tensions with the U.S. are as high as ever.
Yeah. Khamenei basically said no to negotiations, and they're enriching uranium to 60% now.
It's getting really close to weapons grade, right?
It is, yeah. The U.S. and Israel are not happy about it. They've even been doing joint military exercises as a show of force.
I saw that. It's scary stuff.
What's even more concerning is that some hardliners in Iran are openly saying they should just go for nuclear weapons.
Oh, wow.
Russia and China, on the other hand, want to restart those nuclear talks. So yeah, the world is pretty divided on this one.
And then there's Iran's role in all the regional conflicts. They're pulling a lot of strings through those proxy groups.
For sure. The Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, they have their fingers in a lot of pies.
It's even been suggested that they had a direct hand in planning that Hamas attack back in October.
Oh, right, those documents they captured.
Exactly. Although Iran's denying everything, of
course,
course.
it's classic proxy warfare, right? You get to
Yeah.
exert influence without being directly responsible. And they've got Russia and China backing them up, at least when it comes to pushing back against the U.S.
It's a mess. All right, so that was our deep dive into Iran. As you can see, things are pretty tense. Internally, they're dealing with political turmoil, social unrest, a struggling economy. And internationally, it's a constant battle with the U.S., regional rivalries, and that looming nuclear threat. It really makes you think about how all these internal issues might be shaping their behavior on the global stage.
It definitely does. And it raises an important question for everyone listening. You know, in this interconnected world we live in, how do we actually make sense of what's happening inside a country like Iran? How do we understand their motivations and anticipate what they might do next? It's a challenge, but that's exactly why we do these deep dives. Hopefully this has given you a clearer, more informed perspective on everything that's going on.
Absolutely. Lots to think about. Thanks for breaking it all down.
No problem at all. Glad to be here.